Can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky like shooting stars?
Welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about the history of modern immigration from the 1970s to right now. We have a special guest with us, professor at Cambridge University, Dr. Fiona, to discuss the immigration trends in the past 4 decades. Please welcome Dr. Fiona.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, let's start. My first question is, what does modern immigration mean, and how is it significant to the United States?
Immigrants come to the U.S. for various reasons: work, education, freedom, civil liberties, and escape from war and corrupt government, poverty, or hunger. People from all over the world come to America, but the majority come from South America, Central America, Asia, and Europe.
Immigrants go after they arrive in the U.S.
After arriving in the U.S., most immigrants went to California, New York, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, and Illinois. However, after the mid-1990s, immigrants started to go to the central part of the U.S. Those were the basics of immigration. Now, to go more in depth with this topic, we have Dr. Seuss, who specializes in immigration patterns in the 1960s and 70s, Dr. Kai Lan, who specializes in immigration patterns in the 1980s and 1990s, and I, Dr. Fiona, who will talk about current immigration patterns. Let's welcome Dr. Seuss and Dr. Kai Lan. Welcome. Thank you for coming today. So let's get started with the beginning of the last 4 decades, the 1970s. What do you think, Dr. Seuss?
Well, I think we need to go a little further back to the Second World War.
Why World War II?
During World War II, many refugees entered the United States, resulting in a major increase of immigrants. As a result of helping refugees escape from war, Congress passed the Immigration Act of 1965. The act repealed the Quota Act that had limited entry of immigrants from different nations. The percent of immigrants that came to the United States increased from 4.7% in 1970 to 6.4% in 1980. It was recorded that a family in Mexico was devastated after learning the entry of U.S. immigration was limited had passed. They had wanted to immigrate to the United States for better opportunities for their daughters and their freedoms they had never had at home. The Refugee Act repealed the limitations which had previously favored refugees fleeing communism or from other countries in the Middle East, and redefined the Immigration and Nationality Act as a person who is unwilling or unable to return to his country of nationality because of persecution or fear of persecution. And as kind of race, religion, nationality, etc., this resulted in an increase of the number of refugees who came to the United States as opposed to immigrants who came solely for a purpose of better opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Seuss. Now let's welcome Dr. Kai Lan. Doctor, were there any changes taken in the actions against illegal immigration during the time period you studied?
After the enactment of the 1986 Immigration Reform and Control Act, Congress made it more difficult for the illegal immigrants to come to the U.S. This act also favored immigrants from certain countries. It was controversial because it seemed to some as a form of racism, especially to those whose countries were subjected to the most.
Thanks, Dr. Kai Lan. The legal status of immigrants has changed over time, but there's a 2000 poll that reported that 30% of Americans are naturalized citizens, 30% illegal aliens, 7% refugees, 3% non-immigrants, and 28% undocumented aliens. There have been a total of 7,009,322 immigrants in 2001. About half have come from Europe, about 10 million from Asia, and about 20 million from South America. Now let's talk about each ethnic group. There is a long history of Hispanic and Latino immigrants in the U.S. Hispanic communities developed where there were jobs, drawing more Hispanics in. By the 1980s, almost a third of the American workforce was Hispanic. For Mexico, in 1994 and 1995, the peso went down 73%. Unemployment population rose by 1 million people, and this caused increase in immigration from Mexico because they wanted better jobs and better opportunities.
And moving on to why Asians came to the United States. Mostly it was because of family members in the U.S. wanted to rebuild their family. Most of the Asians in the United States were either really rich or really poor, had a high chance of making it rich. Civil unrest in Asia and oppressive regimes in Asia. And the main countries that immigrants came from were Philippines, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Korea, India, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand. And an interesting statistic is that Asian is the second fastest growing minorities. The fastest were Latinos in the 1980s. In 1992, 3.25% of U.S. population was Asian. Now, moving on to Central and South Americans, the factors that drew them to the United States were past U.S. involvement, in the sense that U.S. had accepted past refugees and they hoped for independence and a better condition. For example, Cubans, they wanted to escape Cuba because they want to be free from the regime of Fidel Castro. And in the Caribbeans, they want a liberation from Great Britain. And we shall now conclude with the immigration policy debate, which mainly are against U.S. immigration policies, and U.S. cannot take any more immigrants because in the early 1990s, 3.2 million legal immigrants in the U.S. just from Mexico, El Salvador, and Guatemala and Haiti. And in 1994, California passed Proposition 187, which said no education and non-emergency health benefits for illegal immigrants. In March 1998, it was ruled unconstitutional. Thank you for watching our segment of 60 Minutes. And now, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Saba!
No, don't do it.
Oh.
Did you just run by? Yeah, don't worry. Okay, do it again. Ready? Thanks, Dr. Kylon. I can do that. What do I say? What was our intro? If I can help it. Thanks, Dr. Kylon. The legal.